What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11, taking a look at pitching on tonight's slate. A couple early games got rained out. Looking at the main slate, only real weather game that's a concern right now is Philadelphia and Cincinnati. Keep an eye on that one. Thunderstorms are rolling through. Things have been a little bit more on the cautious side so far to start the year as far as postponements. So would not be surprised to see that one go out. I'm not really looking at any pitcher there anyway. Jump into the first game, Toronto and Baltimore in Camden Yards. J.A. Happ versus Dylan Bundy. We saw some strikeout upside out of Bundy last year. J.A. Happ was a bit of an overperformer. I don't want any particular interest in this one. It's not to say that I don't think they're going to have a good game. But as far as the price tags are cheap, yes, I get that, but there's better guys with upside that you can really target. Baltimore, they've been up and down against lefties throughout basically the last few years. We've seen Adam Jones go on and off, Mark Trumbo go on and off against lefties. Adding in Wellington Castillo, basically outside of Chris Davis, you're looking at a really right-handed heavy lineup in a good ballpark. I just don't think Happ's going to have really tremendous upside. I don't think he's going to have a greatest season as he did last year, so I'll be staying away. Bundy, still a little bit inexperienced, going up against a lot of power bats in Toronto here in a good ballpark. I don't think it's anything worthwhile for me to really toss him in. I like some other guys at similar price tags if you want the risky play. Miami, Washington next here. Dan Straley versus Tanner Roark. Straley's a guy I don't have any interest in tonight. Tanner Roark, 8,200 on DraftKings, you can make a case for here. I'm only looking to really use him on two pitcher sites. There isn't a ton of upside with him. He's not a tournament guy. Probably going to go out there, get you a nice quality start, which I don't care about in FanDuel. I'm not going to be using him there. 6 innings or so, this guy does eat a lot of innings. Going to give up some hits here and there, a couple of walks, but for the most part, going to limit damage. You look at Miami's offense last year, 25th against right-handed pitching. I do expect that to come up. They didn't have a lot of hard contact last year, though, as a team, so that's one thing to note. But you look at Roark, I mean, slightly above average ground ball pitcher, league average strikeout rate, going to keep the ball in the park, 0.73 home runs per 9. So other than that, I mean, he's been fairly solid. You're just not going to get anything special out of him. The one game last year was against the Padres where he struck out like 42. You're not going to get that again. So looking at Roark, I don't mind him as an SP2, but nothing more than just a cash game guy. Moving on here, Philly, Cincinnati, Gerard Eichhoff, Brandon Finnegan. We can talk about Finnegan. I do like him. I think there's going to be some reasonable upside with him at times this year. Just with the weather concerns in the ballpark, his home run potential I don't like. If it clears up, I actually like taking some hitters against him instead. So Eichhoff on the other side, his struggles with lefties is a little bit concerning, going up against Hamilton, Votto, Schebler, and I still like Duvall and Peraza from the right side. So Eichhoff, there's going to be some spots where you might be able to use him this year. Tonight's not going to be one of them. Atlanta, New York, Jacob deGrom, Bartolo Colon revenge game. No, sorry. Not a guy that I'm looking at. Struggles a little bit with left-handed bats. Obviously loading up with Mets lefties here in this lineup. Not that the Mets lineups are going to explode, but I'm just saying it's going to be tough for him to really get through. The guy that we're really interested in here is Jacob deGrom. Atlanta, bottom 10 offense last year. I don't think they're going to be bad, but it's not going to be anything special. Obviously, you have Freddie Freeman in the middle of that lineup. You look at deGrom, though, I mean, one, at home, this guy's always excellent. 258 WOBA allowed last year. Is tough on lefties, which is always good news for those, Freddie Freeman. 273 WOBA allowed to lefties last year, given the fact that Atlanta does have a balanced lefty-righty lineup. You also just look at what he's done against the Braves in his career. I mean, under 2 ERA over 8 games started, averaging about 7 strikeouts per inning. About 7 or 8 strikeouts is his ceiling. I don't think they're getting anything more than that. Great cash game guy. I don't even mind him in GPPs. I will be kind of looking at cheaper arms with strikeout upside and more for tournaments, but he's a safer tournament option, that's for sure, over guys of like Paxton or Charlie Morton or Pineda. I mean, deGrom gives you that safety there. So I still think he's going to sit in about the 6 or 7 strikeout range at most tonight, and he's going to have a solid quality start. Should pick up a win as well. deGrom, definitely a guy you can look at. I mean, I don't think you need to absolutely pay up for a guy like Chris Sale or Rich Hill. I think you can take some savings with deGrom and get a quality outing out of him. So definitely don't mind using him tonight. Yankees and Rays, we get to it here. Michael Pineda versus Alex Cobb. I don't have any interest in Alex Cobb on a big slate like this. I'm not saying I'm going to be just going and picking on him, but there's nothing really special that I'm going to be looking at. Pineda on the other side, I mean, here we go. Talk about this guy here who's just completely boom or bust. 10 of 32 starts last season. He allowed 5 or more runs. A lot of 343 woba to lefties, 36% hard contact rate. He did not allow a ton of home runs away from the Yankee Stadium, 0.72 home runs per 9, 2.05 at home. So that is kind of a benefit for him pitching in Tropicana. He does miss a ton of bats, 14.1%, 29% strikeout rate against lefties, 27% strikeout rate overall. You look at the numbers, I mean, ERA estimators, BABIP all, suggested Pineda was rather unlucky, but this dude still gives up a lot of hard contact and still is around the strike zone to be hit. I do like him a lot tonight. I think he's a great tournament option. The upside's really there, but also the floor is really low with him. You basically just look at what he did against the Rays last year. Pitched 24 innings, allowed 20 earned runs, but struck out 38. Did give up 8 homers. So pitched really well against him in his last start against him, 11 strikeouts over 5 innings. But everything before, it was just completely awful. Hovered around 5 or 6 earned runs in the prior 3 starts. So, I'm not particularly thrilled with those types of numbers, but I mean, it really shows the floor and ceiling that this guy has. You're going to get some people that do take shots on him. I'm curious to see his ownership tonight because a lot of people have been on the Pineda train before and completely get burned. I mean, if you've been playing DFS, you probably have too for quite some time. But the upside's really there. You look at Tampa. Yeah, they're, 4th best ISO last year against right-handed pitching. There is power from the left side with these guys. It was on par with Colorado. That was just the power of Brad Miller, Logan Morrison, Kiermaier, Corey Dickerson. They all have power, even Longo from the right side. So that's the one issue that I have with it. But I mean, you look at the strikeout rate, 3rd highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching last year. So it's definitely up there. Pineda is definitely going to be a GPP guy you can consider. That's about it though. The risk heading into it. Pittsburgh and Boston, Chris Sale, Jameson Taillon. Taillon's not a guy that I'm looking at. Doesn't miss many bats, which is always an issue, especially going up against a Boston team. On the Sox side, Chris Sale, one of your more expensive pitchers tonight. Definitely like him a lot. Is he a must-play for me? Definitely not, just because of the price tags and some expensive bats you might want to get in tonight. Especially kind of going with Rich Hill, who also has similar strikeout upside, but is also priced up around his range. But you look at Sale, making his debut in Boston. Boston are -190 favorites tonight. You look at Pittsburgh, against lefties last year, 5th in WOBA, but 24th in ISO, 7th in strikeout rate. So kind of up and down. Cooler night in Fenway. You look at Sale, 3rd best here on the slate, behind Rich Hill and Michael Pineda. This guy does miss bats, 25.7% strikeout rate, 11.3% swing strike rate last year. Very efficient, 1.79 walks per 9. You look at what he's done on our site, 66 consistency rating over his last starts as well. Very high for him. Pittsburgh will run out a lot of right-handed bats tonight. Expect that when the lineup comes out. But it's not going to have me shying away from Sale. I will have some shares, but price considered, you don't always have to go that route. So Cleveland and Texas, Danny Salazar versus Cole Hamels. Wind blowing out in Texas, 70 weather. I'm not particularly thrilled with these guys. They are on the cheaper side on DraftKings, 8,100, 8,700 for the upside, but I just don't see it here. I like these names. I think there's some upside, but full slate like this, I don't feel like I really need to go there. I'm just going to take some stabs elsewhere with some GPP guys. This is just far too contrarian for me to really consider. Seattle, Houston, Charlie Morton versus James Paxton. And we'll talk about Paxton first. I do have some interest in both these guys here. You look at Seattle, haven't gotten off to the best start, to the season. McCullers dominated them last night. Dallas Keuchel held them in check the night before. You look at Paxton, though. or sorry, you look at Morton here. We'll talk about Morton first, I guess, since I've already launched into Seattle. Morton, I mean, a guy who shows some improvements here and has a lot of guys that look deeper into him than I have, and because it's their job. They like Morton, so improved velocity. A guy that I don't mind. You look at Seattle, though. I mean, still some potent right-handed bats like Nelson Cruz, Gene Segura, Seager, and Cano both hit dangerously from the left side. You look at Morton's career numbers, still not good against lefties. That's the one concern for me. I don't think Morton's going to have a bad start. It's just I like Paxton a little bit more here. I think Morton's going to be a guy to take a look at as the year goes on in some spots. I don't think I'm going to be diving down. I think Pineda, Paxton kind of stand a little bit above him for me in tournaments. So looking at Paxton, I mean, really solid 2016 season. Yes, the ERA, was upper threes, 347 BABIP, 40 points higher than his career norm. I like him a lot here. I mean, against right-handed bats, a near 25% strikeout rate, which we look at, 47.5% ground ball rate. Faced Houston 3 times last year, tossing 7 or more strikeouts in 2 of them. He did get shelled early on in the year against them. That's always the risk here. But you look at really Paxton, I mean, he did have a 12% swinging strike rate against Houston in those 3 starts, so he was missing bats. Just hopefully he can kind of keep that dangerous, long ball from a Correa or an Altuve in check. But you look at Houston, I mean, the upside's there in terms of the strikeout rate that they have. I mean, 23.4%, 5th highest in the league against left-handed pitching last year. But they did have the 3rd highest contact rate when they did make contact. So there is some risk, but I do like James Paxton in the tournament. I think he's a good pivot swerve from some of these guys like Pineda, who is going to draw the interest of some. So I do like Paxton quite a bit here. I'm going to have some shares, but once again, note that there is reasonable downside here and not a cash game guy. Tyler Chatwood, Willie Peralta, no thank you to either of these guys. Tyler Chatwood, yes, he, pitched well at times last year, rather lucky when you look at his numbers. I'm just looking at him. Basically, look at Tyler Chatwood, I mean, bottom 5 Sierra on this slate. 286 BABIP, 4.32 FIP. He does roll a lot of ground balls, does not miss bats, though, 7.8%. So I think that's good news for guys like Villar and Braun and Thames, just because you can get some power from guys that, are free swinging. But if Chatwood is around the strike zone and not missing many bats, it could be dangerous. And Willie Peralta, no thanks. This is a guy I will never roster in my life. Moving on, next one, I got San Francisco, Arizona Diamondbacks in Chase Field, Taijuan Walker versus Matt Moore. Matt Moore is a guy who pitched better at home last year. Sure, I'll give him some looks there. The walks are always a concern. Too many right-handed bats for me to really consider, like Yasmani Tomas, Paul Goldschmidt, Chris Owings, AJ Pollock, all strong numbers against left-handers. I don't want anything to deal with it. Taijuan Walker, yes, he flashed some upside in spring, and you're going to see some reports on him coming into this year where, he's figured it out. I mean, I've heard that for the last 3 years that Taijuan Walker's figured it out. Given it's day 3 in the MLB season, I'm not going to be going that route, especially at home against a Giants team that doesn't strike out a ton. Front 5, still very good, really figuring it out. Sorry, Walker, I'm just not going to be going that route tonight. Los Angeles and Oakland, Joe Cotton versus Garrett Richards. Garrett Richards, I mean, when healthy, has been a really solid arm, but health has been the issue over the last few seasons, running some tough luck. I'm going to be staying away for the most part on this slate. Oakland still doesn't strike out a ton. You look at Garrett Richards, I mean, I like him. I like the price tag a lot. I'm intrigued, but I'm curious to see what the pitch count's going to be. This guy's basically going to be a ticking time bomb this year as far as injury concern goes. So, one of these days it could happen. I'm curious to see how the Angels handle it. If I knew they were going to run him out and see 90-plus pitches tonight, but if he's kind of inefficient, which we've seen from him before where, we've seen 15, 20, 25 pitch innings from him, and it kind of struggles and he only goes 5 or 6 innings. At the price tag, sure, it's fine. But, I think tonight you're going to need a little bit more. Cotton, nothing but about a league average right-hander. For me, it's just more, I'm not going to be using him, but I'm not going to be using bats against him either. He's not a bad pitcher, but not a great one with a lot of upside either. Padres and Dodgers, Rich Hill versus Trevor Cahill. Cahill, no thank you. Rich Hill, obviously we're looking at the Padres here. Against lefties last year, once they traded everyone away, they dropped Dak down to the bottom five. The strikeout rate still huge, 25% against southpaws. Going to be targeting lefties a lot against the Padres this season. And then you look at Rich Hill. Best year on the slate. I mean, when healthy, this guy is absolutely awesome. Keeps the ball in the park. 0.33 home runs per 9, 10.6 swing strike rate, 29.4% strikeout rate. Doesn't allow hard contact. Pitching in LA. Hill, monster favorite there with the Dodgers. Probably going to see about 5 or 6 innings out of him. You never really get anything more than that just because he does dial up a lot of strikeouts and does go push the count a little bit more than you'd like. So you're not going to get him deep into the game, but if he's going to get 7 to 10 strikeouts, I like it a lot. This is a guy who does have 25-plus fantasy point upside on DK. And it can also push that mark or push obviously more of the scoring at FanDuel to where you're looking at 45-plus out of him. So I do like Hill quite a bit. You can certainly use him tonight. And definitely a high upside play too. So that's going to wrap it up with the pitcher pulse. You can check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all the great tools and content.